I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday.
Oh, and we are back in the world of Pixar. We are talking Pixar's Up. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, and it was great to come back to this movie again. And it's just one of those movies, it's a good Pixar movie when you cry, because Pixar will always give you the waterworks when you watch one of their movies. But to have the tearjerker right at the start of the movie...
Yeah, what's interesting is the first, 20 minutes or so of this film is just its own film.
It's a great, it's about 10, 12 minutes. It's a short. And it's like, from right at the beginning of the movie, with that newsreel footage, all the way to Ellie's passing. It's a great short. And I remember, because I saw this movie in the theaters when it came out.
Me too.
And there was a meme at the time. And it's not done so much anymore because those movies have kind of, in a way, faded from public consciousness in a way. But the phrase "better love story than Twilight,"
yeah,
this was like the picture. It's the picture of Ellie and Carl laying down looking at the clouds, and that was just better love story than Twilight. That was the meme.
The thing I'm going to say is we've talked a lot about Michael Giacchino.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Giacchino has written two of the greatest film pieces ever. The Waltz from Up is the second greatest thing he's ever written. Yeah, come at me. Because everybody knows that the greatest thing he's ever written is the best 38 seconds of film score ever, which is the Marvel theme song.
Yeah. And not a bad director, because his first directorial, one of his first directorial things was Werewolf by Night.
Yeah. We've talked about that and how much we liked that. But as far as just, a composer,
mm-hmm.
I dare you not to cry listening to the Waltz from Up.
Yeah, it's just closing your eyes and listening to that music. It's just, to this day, that's like when I see like Disney trip videos on like TikTok or Instagram or something, it's always that music.
Yeah.
So it's like that music has resonated with so many people. It's really good. And
if you want to be hype, listen to the Marvel theme. If you want to cry, listen to the Waltz from Up.
Yep. Of course, the other part of this one, we have Pete Docter, our director. This marks, I believe, all of the films he's directed for Pixar. Because we talked about Monsters, Inc., there's Up, Inside Out, and Soul.
Yeah.
So this kind of for now. But I don't know
We
how
have
many.
finished his oeuvre.
But yeah, I mean that itself, those four movies, and then you know, we neither one of us really was hyped on Soul. But if you would just say, you know, Monsters Inc. Up and Inside Out, and that was it, that's a hell of a portfolio right there.
Honestly, kind of just any one of those films.
Yeah. I will also give them this in that Disney likes to market their movies towards kids. That's kind of their thing, kids and families. And, you know, kids, you know, stuff that you can make a toy out of, possibly a tie-in video game, a character you can meet in the parks. So the gamble of having your big kid movie star an old man. Your main character is a senior citizen. Now, granted, Ed Asner, legendary actor. But for Disney to put out a movie for children, aimed at children in a way, that your main character is a senior citizen, it's a gamble.
This is the first time that I've watched this since Ed Asner has passed.
Me too.
And that was a bit bittersweet.
Mm.
But yeah, it's interesting. This was an interesting combination because not only is the main character a senior citizen, but this marks Pixar's first Asian descent main character too, in Russell.
Mm.
And we wouldn't see that again until Turning Red. So, interesting combination. But I do like that where most movies, you know, going back to the opening scene and the short film basically that we get, I respect this movie for basically starting where most movies would end. In a traditional film, that opening sequence would be the film.
Two people meet when they're kids, where they have this common interest. They grow up together, they fall in love, they get married, happily ever after the end. And then we get their life together and their dream of having children and that gut punch when they find out that they can't have children, and their rededication to their life to have the adventure that they've always wanted as children. And then reality coming in and bashing them at every turn, so they have to keep going into their savings and going into their savings and going into their savings. And by the time we get to that 12-minute mark, and they finally have that money, they finally have the money for the dream vacation that they've always wanted to go, she dies. And there goes everything he's ever wanted. Everything he's ever hoped for is gone. But for that to be the start of the movie, it is probably the most mature 12 minutes of any Disney kids film.
Yeah, I really respect that that's how they start.
Yeah. And like I said, it hits you with the gut punch right at the beginning of the movie. The waterworks are there at the start. Ed Asner, historically famous for playing grumpy men. From the Mary Tyler Moore Show, Spider-Man the Animated Series, everything in between and after. That's his whole thing, is playing grumpy men. but for an Ed Asner character to get Grumpy Man the origin in those 12 minutes, so you understand why he is the way he is. You know, you see him as this wide-eyed child who wants to be nothing more than like his hero, meets a girl who also has the same hero. Life gets in the way. They have their life together. And the fact that he's lost everything now. He's even about to lose his home. Who wouldn't be grumpy in that situation?
You feel so bad for Carl, you know?
Mm-hmm.
He has lost everything, and now this cute little neighborhood that he lived in has been urbanized and gentrified, and
Mm-hmm.
and his house is the last thing that is there.
You can have my house when I'm dead. Because that's it. You know, they want to build a skyscraper on the site of his house. He refuses to sell. And again, from his perspective, why would he sell? All his memories are in that house. He built a life in that house. He talks to the house as if Ellie was still there. Granted, because there's no one else to talk to. And some, I mean, I don't know. I've had family members that are widows and widowers who do the same thing because they're so used to having that other person there that they just by instinct will talk to that person, knowing that, I mean, even though they're not there. So to have Carl talk to Ellie, even though she's gone, it makes sense, at least to me.
I know for me, I've had the experience of, when you lose someone, and you've probably had this experience too,
Mm-hmm.
where you think, like, you're just so used to someone being in the house, and then you think, like, oh, I need to go into the other room and tell them this thought I just had, and you're, like, halfway to the other room, and then you remember, like, oh, they're not going to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of when I see Carl talking to Ellie, kind of Ellie's spirit embodied in the house. That's kind of how I feel, because I've had those moments.
Change is not easy, especially, for someone who has lived life a certain way for decades. Say what you will about them. As we see in the movie, he's doing all of the same things that he did when Ellie was around and Ellie isn't there. Like, when he's cleaning the windows, he's so used to Ellie being on the other side of that window. She's not there. And like you said, the neighborhood that he's lived in for so many years is now unrecognizable to him because it's changed so much.
Although I would give anything to live across from a Sushi Pronto.
So you kind of understand Carl in that moment where the construction equipment comes in and begins to knock over their mailbox. And especially when you watch that opening part where we're putting that mailbox in, they're painting it, it's their handprints on it. So it's not just a mailbox, it's part of himself, it's part of Ellie, so he wants to protect that, what little he has left of her. It's almost like as that one person is trying to grab it, thinking he's trying to help, in Carl's mind, they're taking Ellie from me, I have to stop him, and then he hits him with his cane. You can understand why Carl's going through that. So many changes are happening. They're they're building skyscrapers in his area. They want his land, they want his house, so they can build more skyscrapers and extend that skyscraper into that area. So it's like that little bit of his old life that he's trying to hold on to so much that he just doesn't think. It's instinct, and that's kind of gets him where that kind of starts this whole mess to begin with. So, and at this point, we're introduced to Russell, and Russell's a very interesting character.
I love Russell.
I don't usually talk about this on publicly, but I was Boy Scout. So seeing Russell in full Boy Scout gear, trying to earn those merit badges, it's a little flashback for me. That he wants to get that final merit badge to complete his sash, so he can move up and be a Master Scout, as they say in the movie. Helping the elderly badge.
How far did you get in Boy Scouts?
Not that far. Because we ended up moving, and it was just weird, and it was just I no longer had the free time to do it. I think I also aged out of it.
I have a couple of friends who made it all the way to Eagle Scout, so yeah. Russell is a wilderness explorer.
Because probably they didn't want to pay the Boy Scouts for that name.
And also, there's been some there's been some things.
I didn't want to go there, but yeah.
It's really cool to see his sash with just the one badge missing. And I like that he has to do the helping the elderly badge. And I love when he comes to the door and he's like, "Can I help you cross the street?" "No." "Can I help you cross your yard?" "No." "Can I help you cross your porch?" Like,
gotta help you do something.
And then Carl does the most douchey thing of like, "You ever heard of a snipe?"
Oh yeah, the snipe. It's like, my first exposure to the snipe thing was, I read Pippi Longstocking as a kid, the book, and that gag is in the book of finding a snipe. So it's like, so when I heard that in the movie, like, oh, we're going here. The joke being, snipes are not real. So he just sent the kid on a wild goose chase just to get rid of him. But Russell is such an interesting character in that once you finally hear his story, how him and his father are kind of drifting apart now. His parents are split up. His father has presumably remarried, or at least is involved with another woman.
I've seen her listed as a girlfriend. So I don't know.
But either way, his father has left his mother. They've divorced, and he is now involved with another woman. And his father no longer has the time to be as active in his life as he once was. Doesn't go to his scout meetings anymore. Seemingly is kind of no longer in his son's life, which is kind of a douchey move.
We do see at the end of the movie that the mom is still very active in his life, which is good.
Yeah. When Carl hears his story, like, I called my dad, and then, he says Phyllis doesn't think he has enough time anymore. It's like, you call your mom by your first name? Phyllis isn't my mom. And it's enough for Carl to put two and two together. Oh. And I like that at that point, Carl is a little bit more kinder to Russell because he sees what Russell's going through. Either he's trying to put up a front in being this happy kid, or he doesn't know what's going on. And honestly, it could be either or.
I mean, he's supposed to be 8 in the film.
Mm-hmm.
So you could kind of believe either.
Yeah. But you kind of feel for Russell. It's like, he talks, the way he talks about his dad and how, he used to go to all of the scout meetings. He used to get ice cream after. They would play a game called Red Car, Blue Car, which each one takes, how many red cars one sees, how many blue cars the other sees. And
Great car.
That's later. I just love that. I love that gag because, the adage of dogs only see in black and white. So that's such a great joke there.
Yeah.
Russell's thought process is he needs to have this final badge because he believes it'll bring his father back into his life.
Yeah, his father promised him that if he got all the badges, his dad would show up to, be there to pin that final badge on him. And, be there when he got the senior scout rank. Which, I want to point out, like we just said, this kid is 8 years old, and he is working on his final badge.
This kid ran through all the badges because he believed if he got them all, his father would come back.
That is the saddest freaking thing I think in this entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm including that, opening 20 minutes.
I don't know. Now, I understand. Now, if this was a different movie, and if this was a typical Disney movie, we'd be following Russell.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to have Russell be the sidekick in this story.
In a typical Disney movie, this would start out with, Russell, your dad and I are getting divorced. But Dad, you were supposed to come to my scout meeting. Well, maybe if you get all the badges, and then it's following him as he gets badge after badge after badge, and then it's that first 20 minutes is a montage of him just getting badge after badge. Will you come now to give me this badge? No, And
kind of
then
like in Angels in the Outfield when the Angels win the pennant.
Yeah, a little bit like that, but that would be the normal movie, and then most of the movie would be him trying to get the final ungettable badge so he can earn his dad's respect, and then meeting a different father figure or something.
Then he would have met the old guy.
Yeah, and Carl would have been the sidekick.
Yeah.
But I love how we flipped the script on this one.
Yeah. I wonder if that was a part that was originally an idea, because that sounds so much like a Disney idea. But they went with Carl, which again, it's a gamble to kind of put this kid movie out with the senior citizen as the main character. But yeah, I mean, you feel for Russell is that he's doing all of this because he just wants his father's respect. He wants his father to be more active in his life. And skipping to the end, his father is not there at that ceremony. So after promising his son that he would be there for that ceremony, and you see Russell looking around, standing on that stage alone, while all of the other scouts have their, we can presume, fathers, with them. It's never stated, but we can presume.
Yeah.
For
Also, how sexist. His mom is there. His mom could give him the badge.
I think because they wanted that moment of Carl becoming...
Well, I know, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. In reality, they would probably have said, okay, we'll have your mom up there and give you the badge. But for the narrative purpose of the story here, having Carl be on stage with Russell and giving him that badge was needed in that moment. And him becoming sort of a father figure to Russell.
Grandfather figure, but yeah.
Well,
I mean, there is a bit of a distinction.
Yeah.
I really do feel like there is a more grandfatherly thing there with Carl and Russell.
And it kind of makes you, at least for me, wonder what took them this long to get to that point. I mean, now, yes, you could have said, oh, why didn't Carl and Ellie adopt a kid or anything? Clearly, they were living their life for their dream of going to Paradise Falls. That was the number one mission. Okay, we can't have a kid naturally. Let's focus on ourselves. Let's focus on our life and live our life our way. That's fine. But in that light, to flip it around here at the end, Carl kind of having that the kid he never had in a way with Russell, becoming that adult male figure in Russell's life. And as we see through the end credits, becoming also a adult male figure in the other scout's life. He becomes a scoutmaster.
Yeah.
So it's a happy ending for Carl. But we're getting ahead of ourselves on here.
I'm not sure we can. We're just enjoying a good movie.
Yeah, I did like during that opening 12 minutes that they did kind of have a version of their dream life. It may not have been the dream life, but they had a version of it with Ellie becoming working at the zoo with the South American animals, and Carl also getting the job as selling the balloons.
And also, even though they didn't have children of their own, they're working at the zoo around children and, making life better for children.
Yeah.
You see them interacting a lot with children and, giving them like a happy day at the zoo and,
Mm-hmm.
which, let's not underestimate that. I know that's not what they wanted, and that is tragic, and I don't mean to downplay that.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to admire the people that, like, even though they aren't parents, they're there for kids anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I kind of liked that that's what they did for a living.
Yeah. We don't usually talk about the animation stuff, the animation effects, but I will say I am so impressed with how they handled the light reflecting through the balloons throughout the movie.
Oh my God, yes!
Like when we get that first scene of the balloons popping out of the house, and you just see this rainbow of color rise up in front of the retirement home orderlies, and then you see all of these balloons just pop out of the house.
And when the little girl is watching through her window and it just does that prism effect inside her room, oh, so beautiful.
Yeah, and then you see it as the house is flying over the city, just the shadow of the house and the light reflecting through the balloons.
Oh, it's just That is such a great animation effect. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I don't know how they did it, but I'm glad that they did it.
So good. One of my favorite effects in the movie.
Yeah. So this movie comes out in 2009 and we can assume takes place around that time. So it's not that far off from it's less than 20 years from current day as we were recording this in August 2024. So even at that time you have GPS. So Russell having a GPS and using that to navigate the house to South America. And hey, as long as we have the GPS, we'll never be lost. And he accidentally throws it out. It is a nice acknowledgement of modern, at least to that point, technology, and a way to get rid of it so it doesn't ruin the story. It's a better plot device than you would see like in a modern horror movie where the kids, oh, I don't have signal on my cell phone.
Yeah.
So the way they handle the GPS, because of course, I mean, every kid in today has a cell phone, and cell phones have GPSs. So of course, how do we get rid of that in order to make the story work? I want to talk about Doug. Can we talk about Doug?
Oh my God, I love Doug.
I'm Doug.
Doug is the best.
I just met you, and I love you. Squirrel. I just love Doug in general because how he says how his character's done, and
I want to say that Doug is maybe the best representation of a golden retriever ever. I mean, I know that, you've got allergies, you can't really be around dogs.
mm-hmm.
I pity you greatly.
Yeah.
But if you ever wanted to know what it's like to be around a golden retriever, Doug.
Bob Peterson as the voice of Doug also does the voice of Alpha, but you can't tell because his voice is either pitched up or pitched down.
Yeah. And we've talked about him before because he has done voices we've talked about before in other movies.
He actually was the assistant director on this film.
Yeah. But he did voices in Finding Nemo,
Monsters Inc.
Monsters Inc. So we've talked about him before, but this is probably his most famous. I mean, he did Roz in Monsters Inc., which is pretty famous.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Doug is probably easily the. But yeah, Doug is absolutely the best version, film version of Golden Retriever energy ever. Just so loving, so willing to do anything, so bouncy and happy, and squirrel. And yeah. And I absolutely love his joke about the squirrel.
It is
squirrel,
dead because of dumb squirrel.
Squirrel goes up to a tree and says, I forgot to stock acorns for the winter, and now I am dead. It is funny because the squirrel is dead. Stupid squirrel. Like, oh my goodness. My dog, Bowie, who is a lab and not a golden retriever, the thing he hates most in the world, is the truck that comes to pick up yard waste behind our house, because it is a giant, It's like a giant claw machine on a truck. And it is very loud and noisy, and he hates it. But his most commonly hated thing is the squirrel that lives in the tree on the other side of the wall in our backyard. And if the squirrel dares to come into our backyard or even onto the wall that encloses our backyard, Bowie absolutely loses his little doggy mind. It's like, Mom, gotta go get the squirrel. Gotta get the squirrel is in. He put a paw in the backyard. No, that is my yard. That is my yard. Mom, let me outside. Mommy, mom, squirrel. And he will not shut up until I open the door and let him chase the squirrel away. That is his nemesis. Bowie is very anti-squirrel. So it made me laugh so much. I had forgotten about all of the other dogs also being like very anti-squirrel. And I was like, yep, that's Bowie. Except Doug is just more like, it is funny because the squirrel is dead, but I was like, if my dog had one of those translator collars, that would be the type of joke he would tell.
I've known. I mean, it's weird when you look at the dog's name because you have the three mean dogs, which are Alpha, Beta, and Gamma, and then Doug, not Delta. What happened to Delta?
It's D-U-G, not D-O-U-G.
Yeah. So what happened to Delta? Was Delta one of the dogs that died?
Well, the thing is that there's also a dog, Omega, in there. I mean, there's like a whole huge pack. The interesting thing is that, okay, so, let's talk about our villain, such as he is, because we start out in the, opening that Charles Muntz is Carl's hero, Carl and Ellie's hero when they were kids. He's got his blimp, and Christopher Plummer doing the voice there.
Yep. Legendary actor, his own right.
Yep. And he's got his blimp, and he travels around the world being an adventurer, and Carl and Ellie want to be just like him.
That starts their entire dream of going to Paradise Falls to begin with.
Yeah.
Because they want to be great explorers just like Charles Muntz.
But the thing is that he disappears.
He is disgraced because he has discovered a legendary animal that no one believes exists. So he is going to find this animal, bring the animal back, and prove that he was right. Clear his name, which is where we get Kevin from. We'll get to we'll circle back to Kevin.
But the thing is that he disappears basically. He goes to Paradise Falls. At least that's where he says he's going, and it turns out, yes, that's where he went. But I know that they say that, like, he bred generations of dogs and stuff, but, like, we only ever see adult dogs, and they're all different breeds.
And they're all male.
Yeah, and they're all male. So where the hell is he getting these dogs?
Or do we only think they're male because that's what the collar's having them talk like?
Okay, but like, they all look purebred. Like, none of these look like mixed breed dogs. Like, Doug looks straight up golden retriever. Okay? Alpha looks straight up pincher. You know, Beta looks straight up German Shepherd or whatever Beta was. I forget what Beta was. And it's like, one of them's a bulldog, and one of them's like, they all look very purebred. So,
Could just because it's a cartoon and they didn't want to get into that. But the whole thing, though, is that...
And we never see any puppies. I mean,
yeah.
Like, at the end, we see puppies, and it looks like maybe Doug hooked up with somebody.
Yeah. Well, see
Because
Doug with another golden retriever, and they have puppies, so...
Yeah, there's golden retriever puppies at the end, but, like, as far as Months doesn't seem to have puppies anywhere. We only ever see full-grown dogs.
Well, he did say he lost a lot of dogs, so maybe they died. How old is Months?
He is over 90.
Because he is a full-grown adult when Carl and Ellie are children. And we see Carl as a senior citizen. At least 65, because he's retired.
Okay, so I am taking this from the Disney Wiki.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the people who contribute to the Disney Wiki. Love all of y'all. Apparently, Pete Docter, the director, said that at the beginning of the film, Muntz is 23 years old and Carl is 9 years old. Okay? Mm-hmm. By the time we get to Paradise Falls, at the main part of the film, Carl would be 78 and Muntz is 92. So that is supposedly, per the director, the age.
So Muntz has been really working, because by 23 to be known as a worldwide famous explorer and having his picture in regal halls and recognized as such. So it's like, okay, Pete, I'm going with what you're saying, but he must have been... How fast did Muntz's star rise to be known as a worldwide famous explorer by 23? In what we can assume is the 1940s.
Supposedly, one of the original idea, and then it got cut out of the film, was that the reason Muntz wanted to hunt down Kevin, at least the species, was that if you ate the eggs of the species, it slowed aging.
I can see why they cut it. It would have been too much of an explanation.
But the thing is that there is a little bit of that left in there, because there is a bit in the movie where it's like Paradise Falls is supposed to be the
land that time forgot, or something like
yeah,
that?
the land where time is slow or something. Yeah.
Or time stands still?
Yeah, something like that. And until I was doing the research for this, I always thought that the reason Muntz was still alive was because there was some sort of magic in Paradise Falls.
He found the fountain of youth.
Kind of. Like, I thought that the reason he was still alive was not because he was, like, 20 when the movie began and 90 when the movie ended. And just was long-lived. I thought the reason he was still alive was because there was something magical in the area.
Eh, I think that would have been that would have needed more explanation, and that's not really what this movie is about.
But, like, when I watched the movie the first time, I was like, oh, like, the land where time stands still, or whatever. Like, that's why the dude is not dead yet. Because, honestly, he does not, the way the animation does it in the beginning of the movie, he looks like 40. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he looks about 40-ish in the beginning, and he doesn't look that much older. He's bald now. He looks to be slightly older than Carl,
Yeah, he
but not
looks
by
like
much.
60 or 70 at
Mhm.
the end of the movie. You would not guess 92.
But also, spite is a hell of a motivator.
Yeah, spite is a hell of a drug. Um,
And that's the thing, is that I mean, if you want to go in that direction, his own spite, his own willpower is forcing him to still be alive because he needs to catch that bird. And it's very much Jonah Whale or Moby Dick situation, where his obsession over this one animal has driven him insane.
well, because he vowed not to go back to the US until he found the bird and could bring it back and prove that the bird was real.
But his also, as we see in the movie, his obsession has driven this paranoia into him, that he feels any other human that he sees in Paradise Falls is after his bird. We see the helmets of the other humans that he's killed because he believes they're after his bird, when they were just there to look at nature. You know, a botanist was one of his victims.
Yeah, I want my Boyd. Um, okay, so I want to circle back to the magic of Paradise Falls for
Mm-hmm.
just a second, because there is another reason I thought the place was magical. Can you guess why?
Why?
Okay, at the beginning of the movie, Carl, once we get past the beginning and we see Carl for as he is for most of the movie. Carl is shuffling around. He is using his cane with the little tennis balls,
Mm-hmm.
the little quad cane with the tennis balls. He does not move quickly. You know, he's not doing well.
Mm-hmm.
He gets to Paradise Falls. He's not really using the cane anymore.
He's a lot faster too. A
He's a
lot
lot
more.
faster. His brain seems to be working a lot faster. He seems to be relying on his hearing aid less. And yes, you can chalk that up to like, well, he has a reason to live now. And yeah, there's some validity to that. But you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, he gets to Paradise Falls and like suddenly he doesn't need his mobility aids. He doesn't need his hearing aid as much. He doesn't need his. And, like, yes, being in a better place in life can help with chronic pain and, all that kind of. I mean, I'll admit that. I know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
I live that life. However, that's not entirely how that works, you know?
So that would add to your theory of Paradise Falls being a magical place.
Yeah, and I think that they kind of kept some of the original idea in and forgot to take it out. You see what I'm
Possible.
saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think originally it was supposed to be like, oh, this place is magical and rejuvenating, and that's like why the eggs were also magical, you know? And they just kind of cut most of it out, but also, you know, Carl is still becoming like a bit of an action hero or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, but also he still seems a bit rejuvenated when they get back to the normal world, you know?
But that also could be, like you said, he actually has something to live for now.
I mean, a little bit, but, you know, I mean, you've seen me. I have good days and bad days, and
Mm-hmm.
some days I need my cane more than others, and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but, like, that doesn't mean I'm healed, you know?
Yeah.
And so the fact that, like, by the end of the movie, like, Carl is just like, well, I can throw out my cane now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have something to live for. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Seems a little weird, and I think it might be a holdover from there was something magical in that area.
And the whole point of this, of course, is the bird Kevin, uncredited but voiced by Pete Docter.
I like Kevin. She is awesome.
Yep. Kevin's a girl. I love Kevin. Kevin is just chaos incarnate, and I love her.
She also will do anything for chocolate, and I relate to that.
And I mean, granted, there seems to be some level of sentience to Kevin, but not much. At least not as much as the dogs do.
Well, the thing is that we don't entirely know because we have a translator for the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
If we had a translator for Kevin, you know?
Mm-hmm. But Kevin's whole thing is Kevin wants to get back to her babies. I don't know if they are going to hatch soon or have they already hatched. By the time we get to the end of that movie, they've already hatched.
Well, at one point we hear them calling in the distance, so they have already hatched.
Mm-hmm. So all she's doing is trying to find food for her babies. And again, it goes into the obsession of Muntz's obsession of getting this bird and clearing his name. At this point, I don't think anyone really remembers. Especially, like Carl remembers because that was his childhood hero, but no one has really talked about Muntz since then, since Russell has never heard of him.
Yeah, he was like, you know, I'm gonna be gone for a little bit, and when I come back, you'll all see, and then he just disappears for like 70 years, and everybody's like, yeah, we can,
He's dead.
yeah, we can forget him.
One of the running themes in the movie I really love is the cross your heart theme throughout the movie. It starts when they're kids, promise me, cross your heart. And throughout the movie, Carl crosses his heart every time he does something in Ellie's name. Like, I promised I would do this for you. And even that moment where he promises Russell and crosses his heart. I just love, that every time he looks at Ellie, it's that look of determination and just crosses his heart without a word. And so it kind of adds into that holding on to the past kind of deal. And I love how it all culminates in, whether intentional or not, the visual of Carl literally throwing his past out the window to save Russell.
Yeah.
Everything he owns, everything that is of his past, is thrown out the window because he needs to make the house lighter to go after Russell, because Russell wants to save Kevin and Carl doesn't. Carl just wants to be left alone. And when he finally figures everything out, he's going after Russell to save him. He's going after Muntz. He's, and that moment of him throwing everything out, because and I love how it sets up, because he finally, he has what he wants. His house is in Paradise Falls. He has his belongings, but it's still an empty house. And he finds that book, that adventure book, that scrapbook that he and Ellie have been put together their entire lives. And he sees that page, Stuff I'm Going to Do. And he gets so depressed, I'm sorry I never did this for you. But seeing the scrapbook, it says a lot that Carl has never gone past that page in the scrapbook because he believes there's nothing in it. And when he finally does, he sees the other adventure, the adventure that he didn't think was an adventure, but Ellie thought was an adventure. Flipping that page, and now the scrapbook becomes a scrapbook of their life together, from their wedding to them working at the zoo to their moments together, and that final page where she's right before her passing, she writes, "Thank you for the adventure. Now go on a new one."
Yeah.
And it's like, they may not have had the adventure that they wanted, but they had an adventure together. Their life was their adventure. And that is such a sweet moment. And especially Carl realizing that. Yeah, they never got to Paradise Falls when they were both alive. Yeah, they never got to see the world. But they had each other. They had their life. That was their adventure. And that's enough for Carl to let go of that past. And like I said, literally throwing his past out the window. But before we get to all this, I want to say one thing. The lasting thing of this movie is that everyone everywhere now refers to it solely as the cone of shame.
Yeah.
Like, even people who have never seen the movie call it the cone of shame. I do not like the cone of shame.
He is in the cone of shame.
And that if you can create something in your movie that has become that much part of pop culture, you did something right.
Agreed.
That entire final half hour where Carl is going after Russell and having this big chase with Muntz and saving Kevin and everything, and the ultimate demise of Muntz with his obsession. And of course, Carl sacrificing his house, the last bit of his past, to save Russell, to save Kevin. Russell, hold on to Kevin. Kevin, chocolate.
Yeah.
And just Muntz's own obsession with that bird being his downfall.
And he has the Disney villain death.
Nobody.
Falls into oblivion.
Hopefully he can swim. But I'm pretty sure he's dead.
I mean, we never see a body, so maybe.
The story, even to this day, of the grape soda pin, how Ellie gave him that, we're part of a club. And the fact that he's always worn that since he was 8 years old, through his adult years, still wearing it after her passing, and finally passing it down to Russell, the highest honor I could give, the Ellie badge. Again, it's another letting go of the past. It is kind of part of the grieving process, and I know that this is a movie and it needed to happen, and grieving is not necessarily that quick, but it works for a movie.
Yeah.
But I do love how Russell knows his stuff, because everyone, once they're in Paradise Falls, and Carl says something like, keep going or the tigers will get you. There's no tigers in South America. And then he just points to his badge.
Yeah. I like that he keeps pointing to his badge for various things.
He should have done it more, but I understand, the rule of three as it goes.
Yeah.
But I like that, talked about earlier, how Carl has found this new life as a grandfather figure to Russell. And he's now doing all of the things that Russell used to do with his dad. They would get ice cream after the scout meetings. They're playing red car, blue car, gray car.
Gray car.
And it's a beautiful ending, and like the new adventure book, the scrapbook at the end, and showing Carl and Russell having this new life together. Wonder which Star Wars movie they saw.
Well, it just says
2009.
Star Wars. They saw Star Wars. Duh.
Just the Star Wars. That's how you know that Lucasfilm was fully into Disney, because you see that in a Disney movie. The movie is man, again, almost 20 years later. It's amazing to say that this is an almost 20-year-old movie. But it still holds up. It's still really good. But as with these things, there has to be more. There's never, these characters become so beloved that the story kind of continues. Or should I say a prequel? When this movie was released on home video, it had an extra short on it called Doug's Special Mission. Now, throughout the movie, Doug talks about his special mission. And the other dogs kind of laugh at it. Yeah, your special mission. Oh, the master's not going to like that you told Doug to go on a mission without his permission. And in Doug's special mission, we find out what that special mission is. And it's basically keeping Doug out of their hair, because he's always messing up them trying to find the bird. It's hard to describe this short in an audio format because there's a lot of visual gags. It's very much Looney Tunes visual gags. As, they put him, hey, we want you to look at this rock because it's the bird's favorite rock, and make sure the rock doesn't move. It moved. Stay in this hole and watch out for the bird. And then it's a sinkhole, and then he goes through and he lands on the dogs. I have gone down the hole. Oh, now the other dogs are in the hole too. But the main part of the short is that it's Doug's birthday, and Doug made a special birthday wish, and his wish came true. He wished for a new master. As at the end of the short, we are smack right dab into the movie where he meets Carl and Russell, which explains why Doug is so loyal to Carl. He wished for a new master, and here's this other human that he sees as his new master.
I like that it's one of those things where it's Doug is just going around, like, just trying to do what they tell him to, and it's one of those things of karma just keeps biting the other dogs in the butt.
Yeah.
It's a little bit Looney Tunes, which I like.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of visual gag. It's hard to describe it in an audio medium, but yeah. It's a nice little short, and again, I like it because it does give that explanation of why Doug is so insistent on being loyal to Carl, because he wished for it. Carl is his wish come true, and as we would see in later shorts, there's an entire spin-off. There's Doug Days, which shows Carl and Doug living together. Apparently, Carl has a new house. He did not go to the retirement home. He has his own house again. Not sure how he got a new house, but he's got one. And they have those adventures. There was even a short called Carl's Date, where Carl decides that he's going to start dating again in his elderly years. Again, he has a new house. I don't know how they got one.
I have speculation on how.
Go ahead.
Because remember, he flew back to the States in Muntz's blimp. Mm-hmm. And what is inside Muntz's blimp?
All of those treasures, all of those artifacts.
All of those treasures and artifacts. I bet you Carl sold all of that stuff to a museum.
Well, yeah, because he said he sold most of it to the museum and kept the good stuff for himself. So now he has all the good stuff. What's Carl going to do with all of those things? So why not sell it to various museums? And then he can buy his own house again. He likely still owns that land, even though the physical house isn't on that land anymore.
And with the house gone, why not just sell the land? They would pay him a mint for the land.
Mm-hmm. They were willing to pay him double whatever their original offer was because they really wanted that plot of land for that building.
Yeah, I mean, so there's two sources of income right there.
Mm-hmm. At least in the Doug Days and Carl's Date shorts, it looks like he's no longer in the urbanized city, that he's probably moved to the suburbs or something.
Yeah.
So you're probably right on that in that regard. So Kiki, does Up have the magic?
Duh.
No, Doug, not duh. Doug.
Up has Doug. Doug is magic.
Yes, this movie definitely has the magic. Like I said, 20 years almost, and this is still good. It was a classic the day it came out. It's awesome. It's well worth it, and it's, you know, like you had said, this is my first time watching this movie since Ed Asner had passed, and it's Ed Asner. It's essentially Ed Asner playing the kind of character he's always known as. They even make Carl kind of look like Ed Asner in a way.
Yeah.
So it's like,
you know, I'm gonna say something, and maybe people will be mad at me, but I don't care. Up, I think, is one of the things that hopefully will stay its own thing. They might do more things with Doug, you know, more shorts or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But due to the nature of You know, Christopher Plummer has passed on. Ed Asner has passed on. Jordan Nagai, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Forgive me if I'm not. Uh, he did this movie and like a guest spot on Simpsons, and that's it. He was, he did the child actor thing, and then he decided, like so many child actors, that like, I don't want to be an actor for the rest of my life. He has moved on, uh, went to college, and now he has a career in biology and healthcare management. Good for him.
Mm-hmm.
But he did not want to, be an actor for the rest of his life. He did this movie, and that was it. So like, with the exception of, Bob Peterson, who continues to do voice acting for Pixar every now and then, basically everyone who made this movie what it was as far as the voice cast is gone or retired. And I hate to say it, but I hope that Pixar will take the hint on that and leave this as the perfect little movie it is.
I agree. And especially, like I said, with Ed Asner being gone, you could recycle some of the dialogue and maybe some alternate takes or whatnot, and have him be in the background, and you could have another Doug short. But even then, I don't know. Like I said, I wouldn't doubt they would do more Doug shorts. I mean, Ed Asner passed away right before Doug Days premiered.
Yeah.
And it was one of his final performances. His final performance, I believe, for Ed Asner was Muppets Haunted Mansion, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too.
So it's I don't know. Like I said, you could probably get a sound-alike, but
please don't do an AI thing. Don't do
every one of these characters has a sound-alike for like Disney on Ice or for the parks, and that I'm okay with. But don't do that for a movie, and don't do that for like shorts.
You know what I would be okay with? If they did shorts of Carl and Ellie as kids.
Oh yes.
Just Carl and Ellie having adventures as kids, and you did kids. Like, you hired kids to play kids.
Which is what they ended up doing. Ellie Doctor, Pete Doctor's daughter, was the voice of Ellie.
Yeah. But, I don't mind if you switch out kid voices. Kids grow up and it's fine, Or you could do like the, Bart Simpson thing, and you just have like a good voice actor playing a kid for, ever and ever. But like, I don't want them to do a sequel to this. I don't want them to do like a,
Yeah.
I don't mind more Doug shorts. I wouldn't mind having like, weekend adventure with little kid Ellie and little kid Carl, when they're like 9 or 10. But please never ever make a sequel to this. Never ever recast adult Carl or, whatever.
We say this as they just announced Toy Story 5 and The Incredibles 3.
Yeah, I know. Disney is pivoting back to like, we're just doing sequels and stuff again.
This is because no one saw Wish, right? I guarantee this is because no one saw Wish.
Like, they had so many good movies that we loved, because we've covered most of them recently, that were like based on the, the personal stories of
Turning Red and Luca and Strange World and all of that. And the thing is, they didn't really do so well. We like them, yeah, but they didn't do so well in the box office. And we've talked
because there was a freaking pandemic.
Yes, but also the pushback because woke are the chuds talking about woke stuff. So we automatically have to, and that's the one thing I do hate is that Disney has kind of, for all the people say about hating on Disney, they have kind of starting with Rise of Skywalker and all that, kind of buckling to that pressure.
Oh, no. Also, like, literally as we're recording this, like, 2 seconds ago, I just refreshed a page that I had up. Variety has announced that Star Wars The Acolyte has been canceled. So you want to talk about Disney, like, being like...
Buckling to pressure?
Yeah, buckling to pressure of like, you woke, blah, 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 blah.
Well, congratulations, you got what you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my favorite series, but like the last 20 minutes was like, oh, maybe there's a story here. Maybe season 2 will have a story. But we'll never know. Yeah.
Not exactly how I wanted to end this episode to end on, but...
Sorry, but like literally breaking news as we're recording this.
Can we move on to next week before we get even more depressed?
No, go watch Up. Up is amazing. Up is like it holds up. Haha, I made a pun.
As for next week, we are starting AI month. All movies about artificial intelligence, whether they be robots or computers or sentient computers or whatever. And we are starting next week with Real Steel, Hugh Jackman in Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
I'm gonna admit this one is going to be a first watch for me, and I have been wanting to watch this movie since it came out, and for some reason I've never been able to. And when I saw it go up on Disney Plus, I was like, okay, now is the time.
And this is going to be weird because technically, this is a DreamWorks co-production and a Disney production. So this would likely be our first and only DreamWorks film. That is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
So come back next week for Real Steel, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Squirrel.
Don't let the magic stop here. Join our conversations on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic. We are on the X formerly known as Twitter at Rewatch the Magic, and new episodes are available every week at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com. Remember, the magic is for everyone. It only stops if you let it. Podcasts are fun,
but there's work to be done.
We encourage you to get involved. Here are some organizations we support.
The American Civil Liberties Union fights for the constitutional rights of all Americans. Find them at aclu.org.
The National Network of Abortion Funds helps people find access to safe abortion services. Their site is abortionfunds.org.
The Trevor Project provides a 24/7 crisis helpline for LGBTQ youth and education services for schools on LGBTQ issues. They can be found at thetrevorproject.org.
Or find a way to help in your area.